radio broadcast?
I don't think they listened so much about it. You see, it was a different mentality in those days. You see, the Jewish people didn't realize so much. Even the people in general, not only Jewish people, even in general, I don't think they realized, they didn't care about each other like they do nowadays. You see, the very moment something happens today, the whole world hear about it, because you have the facility of the television in your home. You see as it happens. Things are different. But we felt it. I mean, we felt it. We used to read the paper and so on. And my parents, of course, because they had been persecuted, they ran away from the Bolshevik. They were afraid. Of course, they were afraid of it as well.
Did any of your neighbours' attitudes change towards you or your family?
Not really. Actually, I remember one of the customers of my parents, you see, in a shop there, she used to come, and she was rather a bit awkward person, you see, and she, once or twice she made a remark, you see, that, oh, you Jews, and but eventually, you know, my father turned around and said, well, I'm British, you see, if anything happens, I might be as well. And then, of course, her attitude changed. But you see, there was a lot of anti-Semitism in France.
How come your father was British?
Well, it's an old story that, I mean, I don't like to discuss the reason how he became British, but it goes back to several generations.
So was your mother British?
No, she wasn't British. She became British, of course, because she was married to a British citizen.
When did things change for you and your family?
Well, things really changed. Although in 1939 we were evacuated from Paris, when the funny war, as they called it at the time, you see, happened in France, or between the Germans and the French and the English. But you see, the real trouble started really in 1940, when we felt that the Germans were really outside the doors of Paris.
Who organised the evacuation in 1939?
No one organised. Oh, no, we weren't, actually, it wasn't organized. You see, we were asked that each people, any people who wanted to be evacuated, had a certain district to be evacuated to. And we were told to go to Évry if we wanted to. And we made our own way, and we went there. But it wasn't organized as such.
Where was Évry?
Évry was near Caen, not far from Caen. It's about 2 hours from Paris.
Did all your family go?
Well, yes, we all went together with my father and my mother and my brothers as well, of course. And my father came back because he had the business in Paris. He came back, and we stayed there for about 2 or 3 weeks. I remember because on the 3rd of September, as the war was declared, we heard it was on a Sunday, we were building, how do you call that, a tranchée, how do you call that? You know, you dig in the garden so that in case a bomb falls or anything, you see, it's in a tranchée, we call that, yes, in French. I forgot the name now in English.
Shelter?
No, it's not a shelter. It's not a shelter. No, it's like a. You dig in a garden, you see, a narrow space. So in case of a bomb or any guns or anything falling down, you see, you're sort of sheltered in there. It's not a shelter. It's an open shelter, if you want. I forgot the name of.
We're coming to the end of tape 1.
Yes.
Thank you.
Churchill had his headquarters there.
Okay, this is tape 2.
Oh, sorry.
I'm interviewing Joseph Mammon. It's September the 14th, and we're just talking about September 39 when he was evacuated to Évreux. So if we can carry on about the trenches.
Yes, so as I remember listening to the 11 o'clock news at that time, they announced, when Chamberlain announced the declaration of war to Germany, and we were, my brothers and I, we were building a trench in the garden there, just in case the Germans started bombing us in Évreux. And the life was very quiet there. We used to go out for walks during the war. There was nothing happening, nothing, thank God, nothing happened. And after a few weeks, my father decided to bring us back to Paris. And we went back to Paris, and then I went back to school.
Where had you been living in Évreux?
In Évreux, we were billeted into a home. We were sharing the house with somebody else.
Who organised the billeting?
Well, we went to Évreux, and then as they were expecting all these refugees, you see, so each person was billeted in a home. I mean, we went to, we must have gone, I suppose, to the commissariat police, which is a police station, and there they assigned us to a house.
Do you know the name of the family you were billeted with?
I'm afraid I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Did they have any children?
No, there were a couple elderly people, actually, yes.
Can you describe the house?
Well, it was a big house, actually. It was a big, like a villa, and we were sharing that villa with other people from Paris, which, well, my parents knew them quite well, actually, from Paris. They lived just across the way to where we lived in Paris, in 16 arrondissement. But, no, I'm afraid I can't remember their name now. It was a long time ago.
Were you scared at all?
No, I don't think we were scared, not at all. You see, when you're young, you're not scared. I mean, it's exciting to be moving from one place to another, because you must realize that, I mean, in those days, we never went on a holiday, we never went anywhere. I mean, to go to 200 miles or 150 miles journey, it was very exciting.
Why did your father decide to go home?
Well, he decided to go home, first of all, because, as I say, anyway, he was at home. He was back at home because he had to run a business. But because we were told by the government that nothing was happening, and it was wise for people to go back so that we could have a schooling, and the people had to make a living, and so on and so forth. And that's why we went back.
What was the atmosphere like when you returned to Paris?
Nothing. It was quite peaceful. It was very peaceful. I mean, nothing was happening. Nothing was happening, and we never thought that anything would happen, and we thought that was it. It was, like they say, kept on saying at the time, the funny war.
When did this all change?
Well, it changed when the Germans went on to Holland and Belgium, and they invaded Holland and Belgium in May 1940. And then, of course, in June 1940, they turned around the Maginot Line. The Maginot Line was a line which was built between France and Germany. And they said that Maginot Line, no German will ever be able to get through it. So what the Germans did, they went around it. They said they went into Belgium and to Holland, and then they came down to France. And within a week, they were at the doors of Paris. So at the time, we were told what was happening, and of course, first of all, because we had so much of the persecution of the Jewish people in the hands of the Germans, we ran away. But beside that, a lot of French people even ran away because, I mean, we were afraid. We didn't know what could happen.
Where did you run to?
Well, we just got on a train, and that's it. And we went on wherever the train was going. And all the time we were being bombarded by the German Air Force. And I remember going from Paris to Orléans, for instance, which was about a journey of about 120 kilometers, which was roughly about 80 miles. It took us about 13 hours because the train was stopping and they were trying to, anyway, it was very, very slow going. It was very slow going. And from there, we went on to Bordeaux. We caught another train at Orléans, and from Orléans, we went on to Bordeaux.
Who did you travel with?
I was with my mother and my second brother, Charles, you see. The other one, my father and my oldest brother, we had been, at the last minute, you see, when we got to the station, we got separated. They got onto one train, we got on another train.
Why were you separated?
Well, because there was such an amount of people trying to catch a train, any train to go south, you see, to go away from, I mean, we were going south, we wanted to go south because the north would have been in the hands of the Germans. So we just went on any train, and that was it, you see. Actually, they got late to the station, they got after us, you see, and by the time they got in to the station, we were already gone. Because it was everyone for himself, unfortunately, in those days. Although my mother, I'm sure, must have worried about my father and my eldest brother, but she had two children, because the younger one was not with us at the time. And she had the two children with her, and she wanted to take them out of Paris.
Where was your younger brother?
My younger brother was in in southwest of France. But we got reunited well after, actually. But anyway, after that, he passed away.
Why was he in southwest of France?
Well, because at the time he hadn't been well, and he went on like a recuperation center, you see, to get better. And then, of course, the war happened, and then he couldn't get back to us.
How did you meet up with your father again?
Well, we went on to Bordeaux, and I remember going with my mother to the British consulate, and then we thought, well, we go on to see what they can do for us. And as we got there, they said, well, there's a boat going to England now if you want. You're welcome to get onto to the ship, and we'll take you as a British citizen, because my mother explained to them, you see, that we were British subject. So they said, all right, you're welcome to come. But of course, my mother, because she hadn't been separated from my father and my oldest brother, she refused to go on the boat, and she said, no, I better wait in Bordeaux and see if I can see my father, my husband there. Unfortunately, we didn't make it, and because as Bordeaux was being bombed by the Germans, because in the meantime, you see, the French government had moved to Bordeaux, so every day the Germans were bombing the town. So we were told to evacuate Bordeaux at any cost. So we were put on a train, and we moved on to somewhere else.
Where did you move to?
Well, we moved on to a train, and that train stopped in a small station called Villedieu. And that from there, they took us by coach, or by van rather, not coach, by van, to the nearest village, which was called Saint-Porquier. And we stayed in Saint-Porquier up to beginning of 1942.
How many people were on the train with you?
There must have been about 80, 100 people at least, I'm sure it must have been. And we were taking all of us to Saint-Porquier, and I remember it was a Sunday morning. We were there, and everybody went on to the lorries, and we were taken to the village of Saint-Porquier.
Did you know anyone on the train, apart from your family?
No, we were all strangers.
Where had the other people come from?
Mostly from Paris. From Paris, they went on to Bordeaux, like we did as well. And from Bordeaux, you see, they most probably they were told, like we were told, to evacuate, because the town was being bombed non-stop.
What items did you take with you?
Well, I think we just had about one small suitcase each, and that's all we had.
Was there anything in particular which you had taken?
Not really, not really, because we were in such a rush, you see, to leave Paris when we left Paris, that we never thought that we would be going away for months or years. We thought within 2 or 3 weeks the French will repulse the Germans and we'd be back in Paris.
Who met you in Saint-Porquier?
Saint-Porquier, we were met by the mayor there and all the residents there. I mean, there's only a small village, there were only about 900 people, and I think half of the population of Saint-Porquier was waiting on the big place there to meet us. See, to them, to see such a big crowd of people was something very unusual, and especially coming from a city like Paris or Bordeaux, whatever the case may be. So they wanted to see us. We were quite strange to them.
How were you separated into accommodation?
Well, we were given a small apartment, I suppose, a small house actually. It was a one-bedroom house and a dining room and a kitchenette. And that's it. We were given that to stay in. And the very next day we went to work. Was
there anyone else in the house with you?
No, there was nobody there at the time. We were just given that house because there was quite a lot of empty space in the property-wise, you see. So they gave it to anybody who wanted to stay in the village.
What work did you have to do?
Well, we didn't have to do any work, but we chose to do the work. And my brother went. I remember he worked for a a beer manufacturing, a brewery, and I worked in a farm. I worked in a farm, and I used to look after the cows and everything, and I didn't know anything about farming, but I soon learned.
Can you describe your house for me, where you were living?
In Saint-Pourquier?
Yes.
Well, as I said, there was one bedroom and one lounge, one dining room, or a dinette, kitchenette, whatever, combined, and that's it. There was nothing special there.
So any garden?
No garden, no garden, nothing special at all. No bathroom, no shower. Can't even remember. I suppose there must have been a local bathroom somewhere. We must have gone to the bathroom.
Where did you play?
We didn't play. We worked. We didn't have time to play. We wanted to see. We didn't want to antagonize anybody there. And you see, the French farmers are very narrow-minded. You see. And well, I suppose you see, when you go to the country, if anybody doesn't work, it means that he must have money. And we didn't have anything because we didn't take anything with us. But the point is that regardless of whether you have or not, you see, if you don't work, you must have it. So because we didn't have it and we had to work, and you see, but we worked not for the question of financial gain. It was just a question of being peaceful with the neighbors, in peace with the neighbors.
And what was happening with your father at this time?
Well, my father eventually must have contacted, because when we were in Bordeaux, you see, we contacted the Red Cross, and we told them that we were being put on this train and asked to evacuate Bordeaux. So I'm sure that the Red Cross must have known the destination of the train. So my father, thank God for that, I mean, he went as well and asked the Red Cross whether any family called Mammon had been through Bordeaux, which they went through their file, and they found out that yes, we had gone through. So they put us together, and then he came suddenly one morning. He knocked at the door, and there he was, because he had no means to correspond with us, no telephone, or nothing at all. So he just came.
What work did he do?
Well, there he didn't work.
How long was he in Saint-Pourquier for?
Well, we were in Saint-Pourquier from end of June 1940 till, we were actually till February 1942. And then, of course, as we were arrested. But my father stayed on for another 6 months, or 3 or 4 months actually. And then after that, he was arrested as well, and then transferred to the camp.
Right, can you tell me a bit more about Saint-Pourquier and the neighbours there?
Well, the neighbours were quite friendly with us eventually. I mean, as a matter of fact, one of the she had a bakery shop there, and she was very devoted to my late mother. And if it hadn't been for her, I'm sure my mother might have perished there, because although she wasn't arrested by the Germans, because the policy of the German in that part of France, in Vichy France, was only to arrest the male members of the Jewish community, not the non-Jewish, not the non-male one. So my mother was left, but this woman was very devoted to her. She managed to hide her during the evacuation, because the German, when the French and the Americans and the British landed in North Africa in 1942, Germany occupied the whole of France. Now, when they retreated from the south of France, you see, towards the north of France, they were any Jews that they could find. And as a matter of fact, they even killed, in Saint-Pourquier, they killed a man, a poor man. He had a beard. He looked like a Jew. He wasn't even Jewish. And they killed him because of his looking like a Jew, you see. And my mother, this Madame Delchet, was very, very good to her. She took her outside the city, outside the village, rather, because she thought maybe somebody would talk and said, look, there's a Jewish woman staying here. So she took my mother to another village and asked some friends of hers to keep an eye on her, and she was hidden there for quite a lengthy time. Can
you describe any of your other neighbours in Saint-Pourquier?
Well, we were working for them. They were peasants. They were nice people. I must say they were nice people. After a while, you see, they became very friendly with us. At first, they were very close. They were, but they opened up. They were quite nice people.
Did they know that you were Jewish?
Yes. Eventually, we told them that we were Jewish. Yes. At first, we didn't tell them because we didn't know the reaction. But eventually, we know. But you see, the peasant, the French, in that part of France anyway, they were satisfied. They were working. We were working for them, and they were quite satisfied.
Did you study at all while you were there?
No, we didn't study there at all because I was working sometime at 4 o'clock in the morning till about 10 o'clock at night, so I didn't have time to work to study.
What led to you being arrested?
Well, we used to go. There was another actually. There were several actually people from Paris who were in that village actually, but one of them was a tailor, and he used to do tailoring for the local people. And he had a radio there, and we used to go every evening at 9 o'clock. Well, we used to go earlier, but at 9 o'clock we could listen to the BBC news. And I remember, you see, that was the only news, the true news that we could listen to, because the newspaper never printed the truth. So we used to go and listen to the news. And we were told when we were arrested, I mean, I don't know whether we were arrested as being Jewish, member of the Jewish community, or whether we were arrested as listening to the BBC, but we were told that apparently somebody gave us away.
Who arrested you?
The French people. The French authority, the French police arrested us. Then they transferred us to a camp in Gurs.
Who was arrested with you?
My brother and myself. My father was not arrested at the time. So I can only assume that there must have been another reason besides being a Jew, because otherwise my father would have been arrested as well.
How did you get to the camp?
How do we get to the camp? We got there by train. They escorted us because, you see, we were taken first of all to, excuse me, we were taken to Montauban first. And from Montauban we moved to with another bigger group of Jewish people actually. We were arrested as well. So it could be that we were Jewish because of the word Jewish. You see, I can't really, because we never found out the reason why. We couldn't find out the reason why, you see. But we found out another, and then we were walking there. I mean, at night, you know, I was a young man. I was quite young. I was about 15 or 16, and I couldn't understand why we walked there. There was just one person leading us, and anybody could have run away, and yet nobody dared to run away. And you just walk like sheep. You see, sheep, you say? Yes, you know, not the big sheep, but the sheep. You know, you know what I mean? Yes, right. You see, and we were walking quietly, you see, without any interference. We could run away, and nobody did. Nobody dared to run.
Did your parents know you'd been arrested?
Of course they knew, because we see when we were arrested, first of all we were taken to the house where we were staying with my parents, and my mother said, "Oh, do you mind if I give them I remember she gave us a loaf of bread, because the food was very, very short in those days. And then she gave us clothes or whatever. We took a small case, and we went we were taken to Montauban, and then with the other group, you see, we were taken on to Gurs, to the camp.
Was there anyone in the other group who wasn't Jewish?
Well, we didn't ask this question. You know, you must realize that we were young, and at the time, you see, all these questions, people were not so open. Nobody talked, no one talked to each other, actually. But I assumed that they were Jewish because we were all taken to this camp, which was actually the majority of the people interned there were men and women, two different camps, of course, all Jewish.
Can you describe the camp for me?
Yes, well, the camps were right in the south of France, on the Pyrenees, on the Spanish border. I know it was very, very cold, although the days were beautiful and sunny, and you could see the Pyrenees there, the snow mountain, gorgeous looking. But we used to sleep practically on the floor. You could see the grass growing through the parquet floor. Food was practically non-existent. I even remember when, after 2 days, we were so hungry and starving, we went round the dustbins. And I don't know, somebody must have had some food with him when he came, and so he threw us a few pieces of pimento in a tin, in a dustbin. So we took that, and we made soup, like we put water in it, and we boiled it. I don't know how we boiled it, somehow we managed to boil it, and then we had like a soup out there. And then, as a matter of fact, even in the camp, I remember when for a slice of bread, they offered us a pair of trousers, a brand new pair of trousers, and we said, no, we better keep the bread, because we could see that the food was very scarce, you see, and we didn't know that we would be eventually recognized as British citizens and being transferred to another camp. That camp was terrible. And they used to come, I remember the Germans used to come not the German, the French, sorry, the French, but they were worse than the Germans. So some of those French people, the police there was terrible. And they used to come at 3 o'clock in the morning. And every night there were quite a few lorry loads of people being deported to Germany. And they knew that by coming at 3 o'clock, everybody was asleep or tired, you see. So they knew exactly where to find them. And the men were taken by lorries to Germany or Poland, I don't know exactly where. And the ladies, the women who knew, they could hear, because at